Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For anyone watching from home, on the agenda we have multiple interviews. Previously, with the start of COVID last year, we were unable to fill a number of positions. And as such, we are undertaking a review at this meeting, as well as our next meeting. And the third meeting, we will vote on the appointments by the Bellingham Select Board of the various positions that we have jurisdiction over. We start off this evening with Jeremy Brotman, applying for associate member of the Planning Board. Jeremy, if you can unmute yourself, as I see that you are. And welcome.
Thank you.
As you may have been told by Hillary, the time frame is 5 to 10 minutes, and we're going to move relatively through this. We did get to see your information in advance. Maybe just to kick off, of the number of positions you could have shown interest, what was appealing with the Planning Board?
So I live in not so new anymore, but a development off 126, and I have a plot of land behind my house. And with that plot of land, the builder was trying to figure out what to do with that plot of land. And I had many conversations with Jim about the plot of land and what they're going to do about, are they going to develop the homes on there? What are the issues with the plot of land? And in short, I grew interested more and more with the conversations I've had with Jim over the months, and it might have even been up to a year by now, with what's going on with the land. So my interest grew and really trying to understand what other plots of land are Bellingham looking to develop, and what type of industry is going to go on that plot of land, and what does it take to put that industry or the retail shop and whatever behind whatever they want to develop on that plot of land.
You obviously realize that if you were to be appointed, you would have to recuse yourself from matters that were of interest proximally.
That's fine.
Okay. Questions from the board?
That was my main issue was, obviously he's got a vested interest in why he's running, but how involved have you been in town government prior to applying, Jeremy?
I have not been in any sort of public role prior to applying for this role. Again, my long-term goal is to be in Bellingham for quite some time. Been here five years, going on 6 in October. So I know it's my first role. However, I'm pretty easy and malleable, meaning I'm able to learn everything pretty quickly. In this role as an associate, I have a lot of guidance from Jim that I could bounce, whatever questions I want to ask off of him before I go to the public or the meetings, to make sure it comes across appropriately.
Kelly, do you have anything?
I don't have anything. That was the.
Just what do you think your personal professional experiences could bring to the table as a alternate member?
So my background is sales. So my thought is I like to inquire, ask questions, look for more in-depth ways to make the questions, get more information out of the questions I ask. So I think a lot of my sales background can help me develop some really interesting questions to get more information.
One more.
Please. Yes.
So you obviously, you said you had not an issue, but a reason to be involved and talk with Jim Kupfer. Did you take the time at that point to kind of familiarize yourself with some kind of zoning and planning board bylaws, or any kind of familiarity with that?
So I didn't at the time. I have recently started to look at the zoning bylaws. My thought was just, talking with Jim is to get the background. I did do some looking, but it's more so lately than in the past.
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't have any questions except to thank you because, volunteers are slim here in the town, so it's really nice to see people volunteer. This is a question I have for Mr. Kupfer. Mr. Kupfer, since you've had a lot of interactions with Jeremy, or you're our town planner, you're at all the planning board meetings. What are your thoughts?
Well, one item I would note is I've had a lot of good conversations with Jeremy over the past year or so, and I think he has taken a strong interest in the topic and has taken some time to start doing his due diligence. Obviously, that position is gonna, it's gonna take a little learning curve for people to get up to speed. I will also note that with this one, this is a joint vote of the boards, and I don't believe the planning board has had time to discuss this with Jeremy just yet. I would imagine they would prior to any vote you guys were discussing.
Okay.
Obviously, one of the benefits of us not interviewing and making a decision, this is one of the reasons why we do that.
Right.
And I think this is an effective way to not make quick decisions
Great.
as we go.
Is Bill O'Connell, Phil's on here.
Bill's on. Bill, do you have any questions? I didn't realize you were on. Yep, the W. Bill, you'd have to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
Not at this point in time.
All right, very good. If you do, just follow up with me on your thoughts.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Jeremy, thank you very much. So,
Sorry.
Jeremy, just so you're, again, we're gonna meet again in next week and then 2 weeks after that. So the time frame is about 3 weeks out.
That works. I appreciate all of your time. Do I drop off now or?
You can stay on for the duration of the meeting, just mute yourself for it.
Sure. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much for applying for the position.
Oh, you're very welcome. I look
I
forward to hearing
appreciate it.
back.
Thank you.
All right, our next topic is Historical Commission. Marjorie Holman.
Yep, right here.
All right, and you have to pick up. Anyone have anything they want to jump in on? Get up to speed.
I know Marjorie, and we've had conversations. She authors the walks,
Yep.
Facebook, etc. I think she's wonderful, and she's been around for a long time, and I think she has something that she could add to our historical commission.
Absolutely.
So I just think she's absolutely wonderful, and she would have my my vote.
Dennis?
She did a great piece on Chronicle as well.
Yes, that's where I saw her. That's what I was trying to put.
It was excellent. She put Bellingham on the map with that. I appreciate that.
I was trying to remember if it was YouTube or Chronicle. And I wanted to. Anything, Dan?
I think most of us kind of are familiar with you, Marjorie, but for anyone who may be watching, if you could kind of just give an overview of what you do and your interest with being on the Historical Society.
Sure. I moved to Bellingham 40 years ago and raised my children here. And now my two of my grandchildren are growing up here right in town. I've been involved in all sorts of different organizations from, gosh, it was Arts Council probably 38 years ago after I moved here. Have been interested in all things Bellingham, and then I am the author of Easy Walks in Massachusetts, which starts from Bellingham and Franklin area moving out. Another book was More Easy Walks in Massachusetts, Easy Walks and Paddles, and now Finding Easy Walks Wherever You Are. So I'm always getting a chance. I was speaking with a group that was based in Washington State today, and that's why my little name said I was Marjorie Turner from Massachusetts, making sure they knew I was not Bellingham, Washington. So that gets to differentiate. But I graduated with a degree in history and have been a personal historian, helping families get their stories written down and turned into books. So I do self-publishing. It all kind of comes into everything sort of is working together, and the Historical Commission is all a really important part of that. And I'm grateful to see the direction the Historical Commission is going, and very excited about some changes, and would be glad to help with, I hear they've got me an eye on me to help with the newsletter already. So help, that's part of giving back to the community.
Anything, ladies?
thankful that you're applying and obviously very well experienced and you have a fantastic background to bring into this position. So happy to have you.
It's almost the first lady of Bellingham, the way she's
Yeah.
put us up in Chronicle. Well, I think her background speaks for itself. So we appreciate you jumping on, Marjorie. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on?
Not really. I'm happy if you know, it's another volunteer position. I have to kind of watch my volunteer commitments, and I feel like this is a good fit for the other things that I do. Happy to be a help in that.
Fantastic. All right. I think we need to move on.
Yeah.
All right. Marjorie, thank you very much.
All right. I will
Yeah.
say good night and thank you all for your volunteer work. Take care.
Okay.
All right.
We are slightly ahead of schedule, and I'm looking at a 20 plus names on my board. So, Robert, are you online?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
There you are. Yep.
How you doing?
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
One of the things that struck me in your application was that you talked about being on boards in other towns. So maybe you can touch on your interest here and what else you're doing for other towns.
Sure. So I was actually born and raised in Bellingham. I went to University of New Hampshire for 4 years to get my degree in environmental engineering. So now I'm a civil engineer, and I work for a small firm in Sturbridge, Mass. And between the design work that we do, I mean, I've been on a lot of boards, whether they're, I shouldn't say I've been on boards, I've presented to many boards, whether they're local to Bellingham, around this area, also further out in central Mass. But I think the more valuable experience that I have that would be good for the Conservation Commission is that I've worked on a lot of peer review consulting in my time with civil engineering. My company, CMG Environmental, we actually do all the peer review work for Town of Holliston, whether it's Planning Board, ZBA, or Conservation Commission. I have a lot of experience doing that, and just being born and raised in Bellingham and living here, I would really like to sort of help out the community the best way I can, and I feel I do have a fair amount of valuable experience that would help out Conservation Commission or other local boards for that matter.
Related to Ron Lucier?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are you related to Ron Lucier?
Ron Lucier? No, I am not.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, just I guess first thing I want to ask is, so you're kind of used to being on the other side of the table, presenting on behalf of clientele or peer review? So
that is correct. Yep.
So having that experience, what do you think you could do on the Conservation Committee side as a member to, I guess sometimes a lot of people don't like to sit across the table from various town boards. So what would be your approach to kind of ease their mind and work with applicants when it comes to sitting in front of the Conservation Committee?
Well, I feel as though I'm pretty easygoing. So, I feel like I have a pretty good knowledge base, especially with stormwater design, which I know comes up a lot with Conservation Commission and planning. So, I mean, I've been on the other side of the table for most of my presentations, but I guess the good thing is, as far as reviewing work, if I'm doing it, I kind of know what to look for as far as if somebody's taking a shortcut or if there's just some similar issues that we all kind of go through. So as far as being, on the side of the town, I feel as though, having the experience of designing, it makes it a lot easier to ask the right questions, I guess, per se, to people who are presenting on behalf of an applicant. For, in this case, for the Conservation Commission, it would most likely be notice of intents and RDAs and all that fun stuff. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess preference, I guess, my personal preference is that obviously you can ask the right questions, you can know if someone's taking shortcuts, but would you also be willing to work with applicants to kind of guide them in the right direction to get to the place where, you know, a project wants to be in accordance with town bylaws and with obviously growth that is necessary in the town?
Absolutely, because one other part of being on the Conservation Commission would be if I upset a local engineering firm, there's a good chance that I might have to work with them in the future. And I don't want to do that. So absolutely, I would much prefer working with people than working against them.
Great. Thank you.
Robert, or is it Rob, Bob? What do you go by?
Rob is fine.
Rob is fine. So Rob, you know, I want to thank you for stepping up, because it's not often we get somebody with your level of experience looking to join specific boards. There's a couple of questions. You say that you're a peer review firm, work in Holliston. Have you ever done any of that work here in Bellingham?
No, I actually have not worked on any projects in Bellingham as of yet. I've worked on a lot in Medway. That's the closest I've been to Bellingham.
I asked that just for conflict of interest reasons, and you know, you'd obviously, if you were representing a developer as a peer review, whatever, or if you're representing us, I would imagine you'd have to obviously step away and recuse yourself from being involved in that process. Do you have any issue with that?
No, not at all.
I didn't think so, but I wanted to. It's obvious, you know.
No,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
Great background as
Yeah.
a role, and forward to having you be part of the team. No questions.
How often, my only question would be, how often do you have other meetings that you are responsible for? You know, do you have enough time to do this if you have other evening commitments for your full-time job?
It's a great question. I do hop on other meetings for work, but I mean, lately, fortunately, we've actually hired quite a few people during the COVID pandemic. For some reason, our company has actually grown. We've been really busy. So fortunately now a lot of people are up to speed. So we have more coverage for meetings. So if there was a conflict, 9 times out of 10, I'd be able to have somebody cover a meeting that I would have been scheduled on. It shouldn't be an issue.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And I see that you're on. Did Cliff have any questions? Do you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to say that I was very pleased to see that Rob was interested in the Conservation Commission. We can always use talented people, and especially with someone with his qualifications. We did indicate to Rob that we had 3 openings, and we have 3 incumbents that are still continuing to be interested in those positions. Rob is aware of that. One of the things that I was going to ask was something that one of the selectmen had already asked, and that was the conflict of interest potential there, and also you know, the commitment to be able to participate in our hearing process. I do know that Rob has joined us over several meetings. That's correct, I believe, yes. And yes, we did have a nice conversation on the phone a couple of times. So that's about all I have as a comment at this point in time.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right. Robert, we appreciate your time, and you're welcome to drop off or mute and watch the festivities.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Great. Thank you. Next up, Kevin St. Cyr, I see you on. I got to say, I love your email address.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Kevin. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So You were interested in the Board of Health, and obviously you currently work as dairy manager at Market Basket. Maybe you can talk about, one, your interest, and two, how the Board of Health would interact with a store such as Market Basket.
I'm interested just because I saw there was an opportunity to help out in town. Now that I'm a resident and been here since 2017, I figured that would help out with the community in any way, shape, or form with my experience being in the food industry since '94.
Okay. How would you describe the interaction of the Board of Health with a supermarket?
Well, there's many aspects because we handle food constantly, so we have to make sure that it stays, you know, kosher. I don't know if that's the right word, but just to make sure that, you know, the food preparation and everything's refrigerated properly, just so no one gets sick, no issues ever involved.
Dan, you want to start?
Yeah, yes, Kevin. So I'm just gonna kind of go back to the question I asked Mr. Lucia with regards to the Conservation Committee. A position on the Board of Health, what would be your philosophy as far as, is it more would be a board that, you know, is enforcement, or is it more of a board that would be guidance? In your
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
Yes.
What would your opinion be?
I would see it as both. One, you want to make sure that everyone's compliant to whatever the regulations are. So there isn't say a restaurant breaks out, or my store itself has product that's gonna make people sick. So you want to make sure that all the employees are enforcing that, keeping refrigeration off the ground. So on one aspect, you want to force it, but at the other aspects, you want to make sure that you're passing out the knowledge so everyone else can follow guidelines.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Kevin, for applying. How did you hear about the position?
I heard about it a few years ago through, I'm trying to remember his name, one through Bruce, who's obviously I dealt with. But when I moved into town, there was a gentleman before that I had to deal with to help get myself the house I'm in right now. Because the house I was buying had issues with the septic. So he told me about the position that was opening. But at that time, I didn't have availability because I had many other commitments. So I figured that now that there's an opportunity, and then that I could help out in town just to bring my level of expertise and hopefully help others to raise the bar in the town. So I figured, you know, help out wherever I can.
Okay, I'm good.
Kevin, obviously you've been through almost an entire year now of COVID specific things that you have to be mindful of. Now knowing that you're coming into this role, what do you think are our biggest challenges as the town of Bellingham?
There's a lot of challenges. Like I deal with the public every day. The issues with the public, it's hard because, you know, we have to, at Market Basket, enforce, you know, a lot of protocols to keep us safe. And I think a lot of people have gotten lax, like customer-wise, the normal public, that they just, all right, we're done with this, we're tired of it. But at the same aspect, we got to keep it diligent on making sure that everyone complies with it. There's so many aspects of it. By making sure everyone's hand sanitizing and the mask wearing. I think when one person came out and said that we should double up on the mask. And I think it's more as, all right, the people that having issues to wear one mask, they're like, okay, I'm not gonna wear two masks, I'll wear one. But it's,
That's fine. I don't know if we lost you. I think you said it all when you said that we got plenty of challenges.
yeah.
Trish, I believe you are the current chair of the Board of Health. Do you have any questions?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Thanks for applying for the position. I was just curious if you have, with dealing with food, do you have a Serve Safe certification?
With Market Basket, we had gone through this certification of food and beverage. I was licensed back in 2005, but since I'm in the dairy department, they didn't need us to continue with that. So, I mean, I can reapply for that license that lasted for a few years and then it's expired. But in my line of work, the deli department, meat department, sub shop, bakery has to have that certification. So they told us we didn't have to have it anymore. I'm willing to get that if need be.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge of any septic systems, perk testing, anything like that?
Just on what I had to deal with buying the house, but I'm willing to learn more on it.
Okay, great. That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Thanks, Trish. All right, I think we've covered. Yeah. All right. So Kevin, thank you very much. As we said to the other candidates, we have this week, we have next Monday, and then 2 weeks later, we'll do the appointments. And at that point, it would probably be Hillary that would be reaching out to discuss any details, I think, along those lines. So, thank you very much. You're welcome to sign off or just listen in. Your mom muted. So, all set?
Thank you so much for your time.
Moving on with the balance of the agenda. Under other business, we have a discussion of an alternate building commissioner appointment. Dennis, I don't know if you or Tim are taking this.
I don't know if Tim's on.
Tim's on. Tim, you want to speak to this?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So I wanted to get this on the agenda just to have a backup. The state recently has mandated all the towns in Massachusetts have a alternate building commissioner fill in the absence of the existing commissioner employed by the towns. They're having trouble with coverage, I think, and there's just a shortage of people with the commissioner status. You have to have a commissioner on board to sign occupancies, certificate of occupancies. Only a commissioner can sign that. So they're mandating an auxiliary commissioner for every town. So it's kind of like a mutual aid kind of thing, if you will, like the fire department does. Mm-hmm. So Blackstone reached out to me and asked if I would, if in his absence, if I would be willing to go sign certificate of occupancies, and I just offered the same. It would be wise to have another person on it. It's a requirement, so I just want to get them in place.
All right, thanks, Tim. Makes sense. Particularly the reciprocity arrangement.
Yeah, it does require a vote of the board. So I have appointed Robert Speroni to the position of alternate building commissioner. Would require ratification by the board.
Motion to ratify?
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much, Tim. Appreciate it.
Actually, we got-
Got one more, yeah.
Yeah, so also the, a auxiliary or assistant wiring inspector, Rick Marku, which was the assistant for years, recently retired, and is stepping back. So I just wanted to get someone else in place so we have some coverage in Gene's absence. He's, this gentleman was recommended by Gene. He lives in town. He lives on Man Street, and is a certified electrician. So I did reach out to him and see if he would have time to do any fill-in stuff in Gene's absence, and he expressed the interest. So that's why I'm in front of you for that tonight.
And Rick's still involved? No?
No.
No, okay.
So William Clinton would be your only assistant inspector, Jim, is that correct?
That is correct.
Requires a motion.
So, yeah, same thing, I've appointed William Clinton to the position of assistant or deputy electrical inspector, and we asked the board for their application.
So
Motion second.
First, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. What's the length of this term, Dennis?
I believe it's 1
1 year?
year. Does that come up annually? Yeah, I think it comes up with the annual inspections. If they all do.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's on.
Okay, Hillary, these numbers are right for the safe grants?
Yep,
They're
so,
updated?
yeah, there's two claims. There's one for $5,281. And then $2,680 for the senior awareness of fire education. The person is the student awareness.
Entertain a motion to accept both grants.
So second.
First and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. 5-0. All right, minutes?
Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from September 28th, January 25th, and February 8th, as recorded by Hillary. So moved. Second.
First and seconded. Any discussion? Hillary, you do a great job on the minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dennis, you can take the
Yes,
rest.
the
September
September
28th.
28th. I apologize, they got shuffled aside. That was our capital meeting. Hillary said, "You know where these are?" And I was like, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do." So I apologize for being a little behind.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Do we have any executive board minutes that we'll be approving, but perhaps not releasing?
We probably have a couple of them.
We do have a couple. But we put them on the agenda. I know, I don't think they're ready to release, but they should
Right.
be documented.
No. All right. Abatements, Kelly?
Mr. Chairman, I will present the January 2021 abatement. Capital improvement charge, $667.50. Sewer, $227.56. Stormwater, $202.67. Trash, $552.50. Water, $11,215.53, and water service charge for $38. The explanation for the high abatement is that the Dynergy and Silver Lake condos have a billing agreement. They were overbilled, was not caught in time. They paid their bills. Barbara realized the mistake and then had to abate the overpayment on the bills. So that was just clerical error.
So they were billed but not paid, correct?
They were billed, overbilled, they paid it.
They did pay it.
They paid it.
So now we have to credit them, send a check
Yes, so
back?
they were credited.
There's three accounts that have special billing, and this is one of them. And so it was a manual error that she caught a few months later.
Caught after it was brought to her attention?
I don't know the details.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's the plant, is the.
Can I jump in?
Oh,
Please,
yes,
Mary.
Mary, please.
I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. So just to everybody. To follow up on Don Martinez's question, Barbara noticed it after the bill had gone out. It was not brought to her attention. She noticed in her calculation spreadsheet that an adjustment needed to be made, so she went back and did it.
Okay. But it's interesting, it was billed, but they paid it. So they must just have some automatic system, a payable system.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah. Money for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
First and seconded, and be covered discussions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Dennis, town administrator's report?
We received notice today, Bruce actually emailed me that he had received notification that we're going to be receiving after we talked this morning about not getting any vaccines. Looks like we're going to get 200 vaccines, which we had requested to do the elderly housing. I'll believe it when I see it, when they're in hand, but I know the Board of Health is working closely with Bruce, and I don't know if, yeah, I do see some of them still on there. So that was great news. Essentially, they had applied, Bruce and Chris Milo, Deputy Fire Chief, had applied to see if we could handle some of the seniors that are in institutions or residential housing. So we are supposed to get those vaccines. Bruce is away this week, sent me an email and the confirmation from the state office that's handling it. So it's supposed to be shipped to us next week. And I know we do have our refrigerator at the fire station, which we specially purchased to hold the vaccines, along with a monitor that monitors the temperature. So we had to put together quite a detailed plan before we could be approved. And we were approved, and looks like we are going to get some vaccines. So that's good news.
Is our public health nurse able to administer the vaccine?
I don't know what the plan. I don't know specifically what the plan is for the vaccinations.
Yeah.
But I know Bruce and Chris had put together a plan that was acceptable with the state. So who's doing the vaccinations, I'm not sure.
Are these residents mobile, or are we going to be going to their residence?
I believe we're going to be going to the housing authority, but with 200 vaccines, I would imagine we'll be able to do some at the senior center as well. But again, I'm sure Bruce will be putting out specific details on that.
Excellent.
You want me to mention it tonight?
So that'll be the first shot. What about the second dose?
I would imagine if they're doing the first, we're
We're going to do the second, and we'll be able to have the protocols to record it and do all of those things here. There's a lot of effort on
A
that.
lot of work, and that's what they had to demonstrate in their plan.
Excellent.
When they submitted it.
Good.
Great.
Nice job on the part of Bruce Wilson and Chris
Yeah.
Milo.
Board of Health and Chris, and that was late breaking news this afternoon.
Thanks to the
Some
Board of Health.
great
and-
late breaking news.
Yeah.
Like that news. Yeah.
As I say, I mean, we promised, well, not promised, we were approved with the intention we were going to be provided, but this time they specifically stated 200 vaccines next week, and specifically what we had requested.
So the question I have then is, did calls go out to these seniors to see if they'd be interested? And do we have a list of those folks, or is it we're getting 200, okay, now sign up?
Nope, we surveyed the Rentham Manor and Depot Court. Those are the two areas that we surveyed. We got the numbers that were required. And beyond that, I would suggest that we have Bruce on and we can kind of.
The reason why I asked that for anyone who's listening, but the word goes, we're going to have vaccines, and we know we're going to get phone calls from everyone out there. Hey, tonight,
Yeah, we could use 2,000 as opposed to 200,
Right.
but it's nice we're going to be able to at least get the audience that we had targeted, which is Rentham Manor and
That's
Depot
great.
Court, which they've had some difficult times there.
Well, hopefully what Josie was saying on this morning's call, maybe some of those folks that have been struggling to try to get an appointment can fit into this category.
Sure, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Bruce is gonna have his hands full trying to figure out if there are additional, obviously they would go to the seniors, and that's what it's earmarked for the senior population specifically.
That's it.
That was it.
Mhm. You survived this morning?
I think we did very well, didn't we, Dennis?
Did excellent. I mean, the ratings are through the roof.
Viewership is like tripled, I
It
think.
was on at 10 o'clock.
Now there's 3.
Now there's 3. Oh, you're funny, Don. Okay.
Just bring up the old business.
Yep.
In light of the information we received from our CFO, I would like to kind of just table that discussion for a future meeting perhaps.
Great. All right. Anything else under old business? How about new business? We have no executive session. I would just like to thank everyone who tunes in. Mary, whoever you are, we see you there all the time, and we appreciate that you are following us.
We have new business.
Larry? Come on down, Larry.
So close. I know, it's all here. That's my stop out of here.
Is that your way?
In the high street, I go.
Good evening.
Hello, Larry.
Thank you for taking me at a moment's notice. I just wanted to talk to you because I know that it's budget season and I was not in for to talk with you guys regarding the budget, and I know there might have been some concerns and some questions. So I just wanted to go over some of the things that are happening in the town clerk's office and how I try to formulate the budget to fit what I thought was an appropriate situation. First of all, as I have to take this off because I can't see people. First of all, when I was seeking the office, I may have said this to some of you before, I never had the opportunity to actually campaign, which was good and bad at the same time because I never got to talk about the kinds of things that I wanted to do. And one of the things was that I recognized by being in the office that we were sort of behind the times and that there was a lot of room for improvement and to bring things up into this century. And that's what I've been working on quite a bit, as much as I could, because there obviously have been other things that have intervened that changed that a lot. But we are implementing finally a new dog system, and I have other software to be implementing during this year, hopefully very soon. And this coming year is a relatively quiet one, so we will be able to get all of that done. Also, the only way I can explain this is that I wanted to bring the position itself up into the 21st century as well. And I noticed a lot of areas where I felt that the stature of the position was not exactly what it should be or could be. And I'm not sure that people understand the scope of the position and the kinds of things and the areas that it touches and so on and so forth. But it does, basically, it's a very, and again, I'm not speaking for myself, I'm speaking for the position. It's a very pivotal position that interacts with basically every department and there's responsibility with every department in the town. It's not unique in that way, but it still is not the way I look at it, because I believe that because the word clerk is in there, people kind of downgrade it a little and think that it's a clerical position, and it's really not. There's a lot to be done there, and especially if somebody is willing to be a little bit innovative and do things in a more modern way, I guess is the best way to put it, because it has been something that's been sort of left in the past just because of the succession kind of thing, where it went from one person to another, but they all have been there for 25 years. So it never really grew. And I'm trying to do that the best that I can. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how it's changed and how it is still changing. So besides COVID, so we'll put that aside because everybody had to deal with that. But in the couple of years, not quite 2 years that I've been there, there were major changes, some having to do with COVID, some not having to do with COVID, particularly in the area of elections. And it used to be that, not that very long ago, it used to be that there was one election day per election. It's now grown into this massive project each time we have an election coming up. And that's not going to change. It's only going to become more so in that direction. The Secretary of State just recently issued his directives. I don't know what to call them exactly because they have to be legislated. I think sort of put this for the legislature to debate and make decisions on. He usually gets what he puts forward. And the changes that happened in 2020, none of them are going away. And in fact, they're going to be expanded. And one of the things that's definitely coming down the road is we have automatic voter registration start in 2020, which put on another workload for us. And now there's going to be same-day registration, or at least same-day election day registration. And the difference with that is that same-day registration is that people can come in and then they don't have to show anything and just say, I just moved into town, I just moved into Massachusetts, whatever, and they can register to vote, and they can go right in and vote if that's how it works. If that's how it pans out.
Which is extremely flawed because they might have done a mail-in ballot to the previous state.
I absolutely agree. I mean, it's flawed in many ways because we don't know. I mean, especially in this area where the states are pretty close to one another. I mean, you can go into 3 or 4 states and just say, okay, I decided to move into that. It's nonsensical in my eyes, but it is what it is. But I just wanted to say too that because of this, the hours required to do the job have increased tremendously. I mean, I think I can confidently say that none of my predecessors ever worked 3 weeks straight, day and night, for one election. I mean, I know they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. So the workload is much higher. We're dealing with the same basic personnel staffing, and that really hasn't changed with the workload in many years. There's always 2 full-time people, and there still are 2 full-time people. And I want everybody to understand that and please acknowledge that because it's very different from what it was just even a few years ago. I have other things that I'd like to accomplish. I don't know how much of that I can, but if I had my druthers, I would like to restructure the department totally so that there's more cross-training and more people available, even though they're not necessarily more full-time staff there, but that it would be divided out a little bit so we have people having knowledge and can take over when people are exhausted and falling asleep on their desk. So, I mean, there are things that can be done. I think the day of the 2 full-time people is rapidly going to be coming to an end with more and more of these mandates basically coming forward and more work to be done for things that used to be, as I said, a pretty short time frame. It's now months of it. And the mail-in part of it is obviously a huge job. And there's a lot of checking and double checking and so on and so forth that needs to be done. And again, it's something that this year, we don't have to deal with it for our local election, but if the new vote proposal goes into effect, it will be for local elections as well. So I just want everybody to understand that there's a lot to consider, and in my estimation, my job is to, when I leave, I want to leave the position the way it should be. And so I'm not doing this just for me per se, but I think there are changes that could be made that would be much more effective, much more long-term, and a model that would work well and would grow well as these things come on board down the line. So I appreciate the opportunity to bring that to your attention, and I would like to continue to work with you guys as things come along so that you do fully understand the magnitude of the changes in the situation.
I think everyone is frustrated with mandates or unfunded mandates that you have to deal with. And I personally think it's insane that we mail out ballots to everyone in the state, whether they plan to vote or not. But that said, I think this board would do well if you were to document comparable sized towns and how they're structured. And you mentioned that you had a proposal to put a proposal in writing and what that entails. You obviously have an army of people on election day that perhaps could be utilized leading up to it. And to the extent that there are many things to do, the question I would have is, are we doing the maximum or the minimum or somewhere in between? Because if we're spending town money to the extent that we're filling this room with people waiting for someone to come in the door for a town election, that's foolish. But if it's a presidential election, it's obviously a necessity. So I think that, you know,
Well,
times have changed.
times have changed. I absolutely agree. And I agree with a lot of what you said.
Yep.
It's very frustrating to me because that's the way I feel, and I have to do it anyway.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
but the point being is that there were still some of those mandates go with the staffing.
Yep.
I mean, this year we were allowed to have fewer staff for elections, but they basically the state dictates what has to be, what the staffing has to be, and the level of staffing for any election.
Right. And hopefully we'll have some savings because we're going to consolidate, I believe, or make the attempt to consolidate our polling locations, precincts.
Right, we're looking over here. We have another.
That's that?
Do you know something about it?
Larry was wondering why you're looking this way.
I'm just looking to confirm. I mean, there were some discussions about whether 4A gets rolled into 4 or becomes part of 5. And I mean, I think it's insane that we have to have 5 polls and 5 police officers standing 20 feet apart.
And there are times when we don't. For local elections, we have the flexibility. We usually only have one.
No. I mean,
We
we're
have
fortunate
more
that we have
flexibility.
the high school available and we don't have you running around to our multiple polling locations as your predecessor. Yeah.
Now, we're looking at reduced polling hours in May for the local election as well, Larry. That is,
12 to 8. Yeah.
I think it makes sense for a 300 or 400 that turn out. There'll be on the May election, will there be early voting here available or just that one day?
No, we have the option. The way it stands right now, we have the option, and it's not necessary.
No, it's not. That's why I was back.
This year we have the option.
Yeah.
The plan that the Secretary of State has put forward includes early voting for local elections as well.
But you can always get an absentee ballot, correct?
No one can
For
absentee
election.
ballot, yeah.
So you could still, if you're away.
But-
Yeah, no, I understand that part. I
But
just
it's,
think
but again, it's going to be the new absentee ballot is going to be a mail-in ballot. So they're basically doing away with the reason. The absentee as it stands now is you're going to be out of town, you're in a healthcare facility, you're sick or whatever. Technically, you're supposed to have a reason. But they're doing away with that. So if the person just wants to stay home, they are legally entitled to get a mail-in ballot. So that's another thing.
I know.
We used to post it. We should say anyway, because we never ask people to,
I
swear on
appreciate
state line.
the work that he's doing to kind of streamline, because as an elected position, we're not always going to get somebody who is necessarily elected and versed in town clerk duties.
Right.
So the more you can do to kind of set up templates. I mean, Larry had worked in the town clerk's office for several years before he took over as town clerk. He had the familiarity with it. So like any kind of templates he can set up, if you will, that at least somebody who got elected, I mean, it could be somebody who ran unopposed and had not an iota of experience. At least that'll help make the transition easier.
Some of the best practices, a guidebook or something along these lines.
So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Well, we have some of those that are doing, but that's another story.
I would just like to add that I think you and your team have done a phenomenal job in spite of the crazy circumstances we've been dealt over the last 12 months. And I appreciate your interest in trying to get us up to where we need to be, relevant and what's important to our community. So I thank you for that.
And I do believe that that's what's going to be happening on sort of the wave of the future, is that the structure is going to change, because the structure has been in place for a very long time. And it's not really keeping up with changes in other areas, like voting, for instance. doesn't make sense with what they force us to do now and having the same structure that we had 100 years ago. So,
Thank you. So we'll expect to see something from you. Okay, great.
you may see several things from me.
Okay. Great. All right.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. We, for anyone who's watching still on TV, we did do our town budget session last weekend, and that's moved on to FinCom, and still have a busy agenda with the school committee ratifying theirs and charter review starting up, and a lot going on in the town of Bellingham. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. 5-0.